In this lesson, we will learn two different approaches to solving questions where we are required to combine the information from two ratios. To demonstrate these two approaches, we will solve this question twice. Now here we are told that in a certain dog kennel, the ratio of poodles to boxers is 5:2, and the ratio of boxers to terriers is 3:4. There are 60 poodles, and we want to find the number of terriers. Now for the first approach, we are going to find ratios that are equivalent to the given ratios so that the new ratios have matching terms. Here's what I mean. First, since both ratios have terms for the number of boxers, we will use the number of boxers as our bridge to connect the two ratios. Now for the moment, the boxer term in this ratio is 2, and in this ratio the boxer term is 3. So at the moment, these two terms do not match up. We're now going to find equivalent ratios so that the terms do match up. Notice that if we take the first ratio here and multiply both terms by 3, we get an equivalent ratio of 15:6. Similarly, if we take the second ratio and multiply both terms here by 2, we get an equivalent ratio of 6:8. Now notice that in the first ratio, there are 15 poodles for every 6 boxers, and in the second ratio, there are 6 boxers for every 8 terriers. Since both ratios now have the same number of boxers, we can combine them to get the following 3-part ratio. Notice that our two individual ratios are still preserved here. The poodle to boxer ratio is still 15:6, and the boxer to terrier ratio is still 6:8. At this point, if we ignore the number of boxers for a moment, we can see that the ratio of the number of poodles to the number of terriers is 15:8. And now that we know this ratio, we can answer the question. The ratio of the number of poodles to the number of terriers is 15:8, and the question tells us that there are 60 poodles. So we can replace the number of poodles with 60. Now since we don't know the number of terriers, let's let t represent the number of terriers and add that here. This ratio, we are told, is equal to 15:8. We can now solve this equation for t by first cross-multiplying and then dividing both sides by 15. From here, we can save ourselves some time by recognizing that we can simplify 60 over 15 to be 4 over 1, and now when we evaluate this, we get t equals 32. Since t represents the number of terriers, we now know that there are 32 terriers. Alright, that was the first approach. In the second approach, we will solve one ratio separately and then apply the results to the other ratio. Here's what I mean. First, we are told that the ratio of the number of poodles to the number of boxers is 5:2. We are told that there are 60 poodles, so we can replace the number of poodles with 60. Since we don't know the number of boxers, let's let b represent the number of boxers. This ratio, we are told, is equal to 5:2. We can now solve this equation for b by cross-multiplying, then simplifying the right-hand side, and then dividing both sides by 5 to get b equals 24. Since b represents the number of boxers, we now know that there are 24 boxers. Now the question also tells us that the ratio of the number of boxers to the number of terriers is 3:4. Well, we just learned that there are 24 boxers, so we can replace the number of boxers in our ratio with 24. Since we don't know the number of terriers, let's let t represent the number of terriers. Now this ratio, we are told, is equal to 3:4. We can now solve this equation for t by cross-multiplying, then simplifying the right-hand side, and then dividing both sides by 3 to get t equals 32. Since t represents the number of terriers, we now know that there are 32 terriers. Okay, let's summarize. In this lesson, we learned two different strategies for tackling questions where we are required to combine the information from two ratios. In the first strategy, we create equivalent ratios until the two ratios have matching terms, and then we combine the ratios. In the second strategy, we solve one ratio and then apply the results to the other ratio.